Day 3. Today we're going to be talking about solving multiplication equations. So we're going to be solving equations that have multiplication in them and they have variables and stuff like that. So we're going to be solving for those variables and we need to figure out how to do that. So in order to do that, we need to use the division property of equality, which means that when you divide by the same number on both sides of the equal sign, the equation will remain equal. So let's look at some examples. The first example says 8 equals 8. So obviously 8 is equal to 8. Now, because of the division property of equality, we can divide by the same number on both sides. So I chose to divide by 2 on both sides. And then our equations will still remain equal. 4 equals 4. Even though it's no longer 8 equals 8, the most important part is that they're both the same number, that they're both balanced, because that's what we're really trying to do. We don't really want our answer to stay the same at the end because we're not looking for what the whole equation is equal to. We want to figure out what just that variable is equal to. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's look at a real example of something that you guys are going to be solving. So if it says 4x equals 20, which is 4 times x equals 20. Now, in order to solve for this x, we need to get rid of this 4. And in order to do that, we need to do the inverse operation. So instead of multiplying, we're going to do the opposite of multiplying, which is divide. So because of the division property of equality, we can divide by 4 on both sides to get x is equal to 5. Because when we divided 4 by 4, those canceled out and gave you 1. So it's 1x or x. And then 20 divided by 4 gives you 5. So that's how we get x is equal to 5. Now, the good thing about these equations is that once you get your answer or your solution, you can go ahead and plug this 5 back in for x in the original equation to check ourselves. So you never have to ask me if you're doing it right or wrong because you can check it yourself. So I said that x is equal to 5. Now, is that true? Let's see. If I plugged in 5 for x, that would be 4 times 5 equals 20. And is that 20? Yes. So we were correct in our math. Now let's go ahead and look at another example similar. Negative 8y, or negative 8 times y, is equal to 24. So because of the division property of equality, I can divide by 8 on both sides so that I can get y is equal to negative 3. Because since we're multiplying here, we want to solve for y, so we want to get rid of the 8 completely. So in order to do that, you have to do the opposite. So if I did negative 8 divided by negative 8, we're going to just get 1y. And if we divided positive 24 by negative 8, we're going to get a negative 3. So let's go ahead and see if we can walk through some more problems similar to these to get some more practice. Alright, let's go ahead and look at example number 1. So, example number 1 says 6c equals 18. Or you can read it as 6 times c equals 18. Now we are solving for this c, so we need to go ahead and get c by itself. We don't want the 6 anymore. So we can go ahead and take the 6 off this side and this side. But how do we do that? We need to use the inverse operation. So since we're multiplying here, we need to go ahead and divide by 6. So I'm going to use the division property of equality. It says I can divide by the same number on both sides and still have an equal equation. So I'm going to do that. So if I divide by 6 over here and divide by 6 over here, these 6's are going to cancel out because any number divided by itself gives you 1. So 6 divided by 6 gives me 1. And then 18 divided by 6 is going to give me 3. So c is going to be equal to 3. That is going to be our solution. C equals 3. Let's look at example number 2. It says negative 8x equals negative 24. Or you can read it as negative 8 times x equals negative 24. Now, we are solving for x, which is our variable. So we want some equation that says x equals. So in order to do that, we need to get rid of this negative 8. So how do we get rid of the negative 8? We need to go ahead and do the inverse property. So since we're multiplying, we need to go ahead and do the opposite, which is dividing. Now because of the division property of equality, we can divide by the same number on both sides, and we're still going to be okay because both sides are going to be equal. So we're going to go ahead and divide by negative 8 on this side and negative 8 on this side. So negative 8 divided by negative 8 gives us 1, so they cancel out. So we're going to get x on this side, and on the other side we do negative 24 divided by negative 8. So we're dividing two negatives, so our answer is going to be positive, and 24 divided by 8 gives us 3. So now we have the solution, x is equal to 3. Okay, let's look at example number 3. It says 7a equals 49, or you can read it as 7 times a equals 49. Now, we are solving for this variable, so we want to get a is equal to something. So in order to do that, we need to get rid of this 7 on both sides. And in order to do that, we need to do the inverse property. So instead of multiplying by 7, we're going to divide by 7. And because of the division property of equality, it says we can divide by 7 on both sides, and we're okay. So if we divide 7 by 7, we get 1. So we're going to get a is equal to 49 divided by 7, which gives you 7. So it should be a is equal to 7. Now, if you remember what I said a little bit earlier, that you can check yourself. So let's go ahead and check ourselves real quick. A is equal to 7. So that means we need to plug in 7 for a. If we did 7 times 7, we will get 49, and we're good. Let's go ahead and look at example number 4. We have 2x is equal to negative 6. Or you can read it as 2 times x equals negative 6. Now, our goal is to solve for this variable, or this x. So we need to go ahead and get rid of the 2 from both sides. And in order to do that, we need to do the inverse property. So instead of multiplying by 2, we're going to divide by 2 on both sides. And because of the division property of equality, we can divide by 2 on both sides, and our equation is going to stay equal, which is good. So our 2's are going to cancel out, and then we're going to have x is equal to negative 6 divided by 2. So we have a negative divided by a positive. So since there's only one negative, our answer is going to be negative. And then 6 divided by 2 gives us 3. So it says x is equal to negative 3. Let's check ourselves. So this 2 times negative 3, does that give us negative 6? Yes. So we're good. Alright, last problem is a word problem. It says, Ashley earns $16 $6 per hour helping her grandmother. How many hours does she need to work to earn $48? So let's go ahead and come up with an equation first, and then we can solve it. So basically, we want our answer to be 48 because we want her to get $48. Now, how many hours does she have to work? Now, anytime it's talking about money per hour, anytime you see that per hour, it means multiplied by how many hours you work. And that will give you how much money you make. So if we have $6, we're going to multiply that by how many hours she works to get $48. Because I use the variable h because I'm looking for how many hours she needs to work. So this h kind of just reminds me I'm looking for hours. So since I'm solving for the h, or the hours, we need to go ahead and get rid of our 6 from both sides. And in order to do that, we need to do the opposite operation, or the inverse operation. So instead of multiplying by 6, we're going to divide by 6 on both sides. And because of the division property of equality, it says that if we divide by the same number on both sides, we're going to be good. So the 6's are going to cancel out, and we're going to have h is equal to 6 times what gives us 48? 6 times 8. So basically we know now that she needs to work 8 hours to be able to get $48. Alright, if you have any questions or any of this was kind of a little bit confusing, rewind it, watch it again, or come in with your questions tomorrow. Now let's go ahead and look at our on your own question.
You have 3 problems to do for me. Number 1 says 15 equals 3z. Number 2 is negative 9r equals negative 36. In those first 2 problems, just go ahead and solve for the variable by dividing. Number 3, a shark can swim at an average speed of about 25 miles per hour. At this rate, how long would it take a shark to swim 60 miles? So what you need to go ahead and do is come up with a multiplication algebraic expression or equation, and then go ahead and solve for that variable. Good luck. We'll see what you get tomorrow.